It's time for another WrestlePlanet news update, as there has been another departure from WWE. We have an update on the plans for Brodie Lee in AEW before his passing, and Vince McMahon is heading to the WWE Performance Center. All that and more coming up in today's video, but first... On a recent episode of Renee Paquette's Oral Sessions, popular former WWE duo The Iconics discussed their release from the company, which happened on July 14th. The pair discussed the difficult predicament that they find themselves in, with them currently unable to legally work in the United States. Jessica McKay, the former Billie Kay, said, "The difficult thing for us is we still don't have our green cards, so we're not allowed to work until we get those or until we find sponsorship anywhere else. We're so excited, we have all this freedom and so many ideas, but pump the brakes because we can't do any of it. The podcast, we're not making any money off of it. It's purely to get our name out there and stay relevant. It's been tough just knowing we have all these things we want to do, but can't do it." It appears that their employment with WWE enabled them to work in the United States, but when they were released, this status ended. Whilst they're unable to work right now, they are trying their best to find a sponsor, which could come in the form of a new employer. The duo added that getting their green card can sometimes take years, which can hopefully be sped up should AEW or Impact Wrestling sign them, which is two places that they've expressed interest in working in the past. As we've discussed before, rather than the name The Iconics, they will be known as The Inspiration wherever they do end up. Two AEW wrestlers have seemingly gone public with their relationship after a photo was posted to one of their Twitter accounts. Jungle Boy, who is coming off the back of an unsuccessful AEW World Title match, posted a picture of himself and the Dark Order's Anna Jay kissing outside the home of AEW, Daily's Place. There has been speculation that the two were dating on social media, but this is the first time one of them has confirmed the rumors. Anna Jay has been out of action since February following a shoulder injury, and at the time was expected to be out for 6 to 12 months. This means that she will be back sometime in the next 6 months, depending on how well her recovery is going. And next up in wrestling love news, we have an update from the Seth Rollins-Becky Lynch household, and it appears they have finally tied the knot after announcing their engagement in August of 2019. Yesterday, Seth Rollins posted an image to his Instagram story of himself and Becky working out in a tropical location with the caption, "Seems like a fine day to finally get married." The WWE Twitter account then confirmed the news and said, "Congratulations to Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, who are getting married today." The wedding is almost 2 years after the initial engagement, and the wedding is said to have been originally planned for May 2020, but this was of course before the pandemic hit. The couple have also recently welcomed their daughter Rue to the world after Becky gave birth on December 4th of last year. On last night's episode of NXT, a brand new champion was crowned when Bronson Reed defended his North American title in the main event of the show. Reed dropped the belt to Isaiah Swerve Scott, who picked up his first belt under the WWE banner. Scott pinned Reed following a 450 splash, which ends his 3-month reign with the title. Bronson Reed has been tipped for a call-up to the main roster as of late after being in attendance at Raw and SmackDown shows, competing in a dark match against Robert Roode, as well as an appearance on last week's episode of WWE Main Event. This gave the WWE higher-ups a chance to see Reed in person, and clearly he impressed. Reed is expected to be called up during the draft later on in the year, which takes place on the August 30th edition of Raw and the September 3rd edition of SmackDown. There is no word on which brand he will end up in just yet. And speaking of NXT, Samoa Joe made a return to the Black and Gold brand 2 weeks ago as the enforcer to General Manager William Regal. Of course, 1 month prior, he had been released from his WWE contract following a series of injuries, and Joe recently spoke to Ryan Satin on the Out of Character podcast to discuss how his return came about. He revealed that John Laurinaitis, who is the head of talent relations in WWE, called Joe to reveal the news. Shortly after that call, Triple H, who is a big fan of Samoa Joe, called him in order to fix the obvious mistake that the company had made, which led to his return. Joe said, A few hours later, I get a call from Hunter, Triple H, and it pretty much all kind of changed. I had sent some company farewell texts to some people I genuinely enjoyed working with, and just something general like, hey thanks, I'm sure we'll talk down the road at some point. And I got a text back, hey, give me a minute, I'm getting out of a meeting. Then we had a brief conversation which was essentially, give us a bit more time, I'll work out a package and we'll be talking soon. And I said, alright, that's totally fine, I have no problem with that. And it led to my return back to NXT. Joe was then asked by Saturn if he had any hesitations about rejoining the promotion so quickly after his release, which Joe responded, no, a lot of it was that me and Triple H had spoken about this transition in depth. It wasn't just coming back to NXT and being an enforcer and having a role on the show. Now I'm working in the talent scouting department, a few more administrative things behind the scenes, so it's a little bit of a transition for me too into some of the other aspects of the business of the WWE. And Joe was asked the question on many fans' lips on whether he will be making a return to the ring now that he is back in NXT, and Joe was quick to say, yes, we'll just say yes, we'll leave it at that. And as we've discussed before, Joe has been dealing with injuries as of late and had not been cleared by doctors to make a return when he was still on the main roster, which is why we saw him on commentary before his release last month. This comment seems to suggest that Joe is on the road to recovery, and I myself look forward to seeing him back between the ropes sometime soon. He is one of the most unique athletes in the wrestling business today, and also one of the best performers. And who would you like to see Joe go one-on-one with in NXT? Let me know in the comments down below. And quickly before we continue, if you're enjoying the video so far, why not give it a like, as it helps me continue to grow the channel. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss any upcoming wrestling content. And now that you've done that, let's get on with the rest of the video. Next up, Fightful are reporting that another name has left the WWE, which follows a number of releases in recent months. Producer / road agent Sanjay Dutt is said to have left his role in WWE, which has been confirmed by various sources within the company. Dutt joined the company back in January 2019 after being forced to retire from wrestling following an Achilles injury. Dutt is mostly known for his time in TNA's X Division, first appearing for the promotion all the way back in 2003. It's unclear what his future holds, but it remains to be seen whether he will be able to wrestle once again now that he is back to free agent status. The report does state that the decision to leave WWE was his own, so it will certainly be interesting to track his future here on out. Next up, we have another report from Fightful, who interviewed Colt Cabana this past week. During the chat, Colt revealed what the plans were for himself, Brodie Lee, and the Dark Order. Before Brodie's passing, Colt and Brodie were in the midst of a storyline which saw Cabana on a losing streak, with the group then attempting to recruit him to help turn his career around. Eventually, Colt reluctantly joined the Dark Order before going on a winning streak. According to the man himself, there were plans for he and Brodie Lee to circle back and eventually feud down the line. This was hinted at consistently on screen, with Colt still showing his reluctance to follow along with the group's orders. Colt said that he drew up a manuscript to outline the storyline, but unfortunately it was never able to be played out on screen. And finally, WWE Chairman Vince McMahon is said to be heading to the Performance Center this week in order to personally scout talent for the main roster. Over the past few weeks, a number of WWE higher-ups have traveled to the Orlando base, with the likes of John Laurinaitis, Bruce Pritchard, and Jamie Noble in attendance for behind-closed-doors WWE PC live events. This move is said to be in order to freshen up the main roster ahead of the company's return to the road, which starts on July 16th when SmackDown airs from Houston's Toyota Center. As we mentioned earlier, WWE is set to hold a draft in August to further freshen things up, which could feature the former NXT North American champion Bronson Reed. More names are also said to be in line for a call-up, with Karrion Kross, Scarlett, and Shotzi Blackheart all being tipped for call-ups after working dark matches and main event matches at main roster tapings. They could be set to be joined by by even more names once Vince McMahon gets a further look at all of the talent available. But let me know who you think deserves to be called up to Raw and SmackDown in the comments down below. And if you're interested in more videos from me, make sure you check out my Jon Moxley documentary where I chronicle his AEW World Championship reign.